All right, good afternoon and welcome to HCDVCC Connects. Hope everybody is having an amazing Monday. I know that for myself, it feels like Monday came and everything went off like gangbusters. So, in the midst of all of your busyness, for those who will be able to join us live and for those who will watch the replay, again, I hope that you're having an amazing Monday and that the rest of the week will be great. I'm Thisha Jenkins, Training Director with Harris County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. And this month we are having conversations with some amazing men from around the state that are doing the work. It is International Men's Month, and we thought that it would be a good idea to talk to men who are engaged in this movement, who are engaged in helping individuals to recognize, respond to issues of domestic violence and sexual violence. And so last week we had the opportunity to talk with Emiliano from Texas Association Against Sexual Assault and Jeremy from East Texas Crisis Center. And today we're going to have with us Josh Brown, who is with the Fort Bend County Women's Center. And just as a reminder, HCDVCC Connects, our goal is to connect systems and community members so that survivors of domestic violence can experience greater access to services and safety through collaborative efforts. So again, welcome to HCDVCC Connects. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our guest, Josh Brown. Hey, Josh, how are you?
I'm well, Thisha. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and visit. I'm going to come over here to our chat box. I see that we have with us today, again, we've got Jamie, who is one of our regulars here. It's good to see you, Jamie. Hope all is well in your world. Hope you had an amazing weekend. And we've got Tish. Happy Monday to you also, Tish. All right. So let me go ahead and let's, as they say, get into it.
Let's do
Josh,
it.
you would go ahead and introduce yourself to our guests that are watching now and to those who will watch the replay.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is an honor to come and speak to you, and I'm humbled that you want to know more about the work that I do and that we do here. My name is Josh Brown. I'm the Chief Programs Officer for the Fort Bend Women's Center in Richmond, Texas. And what I do is oversee, well, really a lot of things. I oversee a group of about 50 programs employees, and we offer a wide range of services to survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence, including case management. We offer rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing support, mental health services, all sorts of different types of modalities of mental health services with licensed clinicians, including talk therapy, animal-assisted counseling, group therapy, neurofeedback. We operate an emergency shelter. We also provide life and wellness skills. We have a 24/7 hotline, all sorts of things that we do. We try to make it as comprehensive as possible. I started here actually with the neurofeedback program, which is a brain training program that we use for our clients that we serve. But I have a really talented group of directors that oversee their department. And then we have unbelievably tireless and dedicated staff who are on the front lines working to assist our clients who are dealing with some of the hardest times of their life. And I'm honored to do it.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to do a little bit more drill down on some of the services, and then we're going to move into your role in doing this work as a man. The neurofeedback, and prior to us going live, I had asked if you would talk a little bit more about that. So if you just give us like a thumbnail overview of the neurofeedback program, which I believe is so good based on the interaction I had. And I actually had an opportunity to come and visit Fort Bend County Women's Center to see that. So tell us more about neurofeedback and why that's important for survivors of domestic violence.
Sure, I would love to. So neurofeedback is a type of biofeedback. So it's taking a process that happens in your body that you don't normally have to think about, such as, say, your heart rate. Your heart beats and you don't have to think about it. Well, if you're at the gym and you're running on the treadmill and you put your hands on the heart rate monitor as you're running, it'll tell you what your heart rate is, and it'll tell you whether you need to speed up or slow down. So that's a form of biofeedback. So we're telling you something about something that's going on in your body, and you're learning how to control it. So what we do with neurofeedback is we do that similar concept, but we do it with brain waves. So your brain gives off an electrochemical response when neurons, the cells in your brain, are active. And so we're able to hook up sensors to the scalp and monitor that electrical activity. And then we can feed it back to you in the form of a game or a television show. And you can actually train to learn how to change those brainwave patterns. Why this is so important, and with this work in particular, where we have focused initially was with survivors who we believed had potential brain injury, that were struggling to meet their goals, to head towards self-sufficiency. And we've been able to show great results with neurofeedback. We've got a partnership with University of Massachusetts Amherst, and we've published studies, and we have lots of data we collect of the positive outcomes of neurofeedback.
Awesome. And just to add to that, as I said, I had the opportunity about probably almost 5 years ago now, when I first joined the council, to go and visit Fort Bend County Women's Center. And one of the videos, and you actually may have shown this actually at a training, just the dramatic difference of one of the women that had gone through the neurofeedback, and after her pre and her post, physically, she looked so different. Physically, she looked like she had gone to the fountain of youth, quite frankly. I mean, yes. You could tell there was a remarkable difference.
There is, and it's interesting you bring up the video. So within our program, I like data, and I'm very data driven, and so how we created this program with neurofeedback is we collect data on various mental health assessments that are standardized and validated, but we also do videotaped, of course, with the survivor's permission. We do videotaped intake and exit interviews, pre and post neurofeedback, because we want to see what physical changes we see. So changes in posture, changes in eye contact, general affect, even grooming behaviors, things like that. And we're seeing a lot of really substantial changes, and that's really fun to see. It's odd to say it's fun to see, but it's really gratifying to see somebody do the work at their lowest point, or one of their lowest points of their life, and work their way where they feel much more stable and much more hopeful.
Definitely, definitely. And then I wrote something down. I think you said talk therapy.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So that when I say talk therapy, it's traditional, what a lot of people think of when they go to see a therapist or a clinician. So your cognitive behavioral therapy, there are other cognitive processing therapy, other types of talk therapy that you might encounter when you go to see a therapist. So we provide that kind of the more traditional service, but then we have lots of the innovative services like the neurofeedback.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and pivot. That's been the word of 2020 and 2021. Let's pivot into talking about Josh Brown, the advocate.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about your role in domestic violence and sexual assault advocacy.
Okay.
What has been your role over the years?
Over the years. Okay. Well, it all started, it's about 6 years ago. Is when I got into the field. And for those of you who know Abir Manam was the driving force in getting me into the field. And she brought me in. We got the neurofeedback program set up. And so initially I was running that program, seeing clients, working with them, setting that program up. And then a few years into that, we received some funding. So I was able to build a team. And my role was Director of Special Initiatives and Community Education. And what I learned in that role is that anything that someone doesn't want to do, they call it a special initiative, and then they just give it to me. And so I got a wide range of experience in that role. And then I took over as Chief Programs Officer in October of 2019. So I've been fortunate to have worked a lot directly with survivors. And now I don't get to do as many cool things, programs anymore directly, but I do oversee it now.
So when Abir came to you and said, hey, you know what? We'd love to have you join us here at Fort Bend. What was your initial thought, making that step into domestic violence? I know in the green room, we kind of chatted about you are a coach.
Yes.
And the responses that you get when you are talking with individuals about, hey, this is the work I do. So I'm just wondering, what was that thought process when you were first approached about doing this work?
That's a good question. I had similar responses we were talking about earlier. I do a lot of coaching. I have two boys and who love sports, and when I'm in, some people just know me as a coach. They don't know what I do professionally. So when they finally ask what I do, I'll tell them. And I used to be a little more coy with how I worded it, because I was always kind of like, well, how are they going to take this? Now I just tell them flat out, and I get a couple of responses. Either I get, oh, I'd like to know more, or I get people who pull back. And that always makes me wonder when people pull back. But that's a similar response. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And so I kind of got the similar response just when people say, well, what is your license? It's clinical social worker. So I was a little bit used to that, people not understanding what it is that I do. And so my thought process coming into this was, I like to help people. I believe that if we, it says a lot about us as a society, how we treat people who are less fortunate, how we treat people who are at their lowest point. And I believe with the neurofeedback, as does Abir, I believe that just because someone doesn't have the resources to afford something doesn't mean they don't deserve the best and the most innovative. Exactly. And so that was my thought process coming in.
So it sounds almost like when Abir extended that opportunity to come into doing this work, that it wasn't something you had to think about.
No. Initially, it was just a new arena to get neurofeedback. It's a very innovative arena. No one had ever really worked neurofeedback with the domestic violence or sexual violence population. But then once I get in and started going, then it just became, it's natural, right? It just, this is what we're doing. This is who we're helping.
Wow. So over the last 6 years, how has being engaged in victim advocacy work shaped your life, Josh?
It has actually calmed me down somewhat. I mean, it's never high strung, but it has allowed me to learn how to be, even as a social worker, we try to be non-judgmental. But as an advocate in this field, you really have to be non-judgmental. You have to understand other people's perspectives. You have to listen. You have to hear what they're saying and understand that sometimes what you think is not always the answer, is not always the way it is. And so I think that has helped shape me to be better at listening to other perspectives and be better at understanding that I don't have the answers. It's not that I don't have all the answers. I don't have the answers, period. That it is in the individual that we're helping who has the answers. Our job is just to help them get to that point.
Awesome. Well, I was intrigued, when you say that you are a coach, because we know that there's also this national program called Coaching Boys into Men. And so I'm wondering that you're coaching sports. And keeping with that theme, how has this shaped you? And then adding to that, lessons learned in the circles that you are in when you are coaching, which may be predominantly male. Mm-hmm. So how has that impacted those relationships when people know what you do?
Well, like I said, either they accept it and ask questions, which is always great, or they pull back. And when they pull back, it always makes me wonder. I mean, I see in coaching circles, thankfully, I've been really fortunate to coach with groups of men who are strong believers in human rights and dignity, and we don't demean kids, we don't that sort of thing. But that's not always the case in coaching, and so it has it's allowed me to sort of educate a little bit, even coaches who are not in my orbit, to be able to just come out when they're losing it on the field with the kid, to be able to come over and just try to calm them down and try to talk to them. I think is important, even if it's because no one ever does it. No one ever comes and tries to say, hey, maybe that's not the best way to do it.
Right. And I think what you have just demonstrated there is about being an effective bystander.
Correct. There you
yes. Let's see. Jamie has put in the chat, just because someone can't afford the resources doesn't mean they do not deserve the best. Absolutely powerful. So she's like, yes, Josh. Yes. Awesome. If you had to bring it down to 1 to 3 lessons that you have learned, what would they be over the last 6 years?
The biggest lesson, I think, is the lesson that it's okay to feel cognitive dissonance. So for those who don't know that term, it's when you see something, when you think it should be one way, and then you see it and it's not the way you think it should be. It's that uncomfortable feeling. It's that feeling of that you grapple with. And I think anybody coming into this field deals with that, particularly if you're in, say, I see it a lot in our emergency shelter with staff who come in who think it should be one way, and then there are multi-layered trauma, we see it happening other ways. And so it's okay to feel that, but you have to process it. Mm-hmm. That's what I've learned. You have to process it, either figure out a way to integrate that, what you're seeing, into here, or burnout happens. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned, and it's hard you can't really teach that. It's just a process people have to go through, and I think it's important to walk people through that process.
Awesome. So when you were talking about cognitive dissonance earlier, and again, just because we're highlighting the need for men and women to work collaboratively in ending gender-based violence, I would think, and based on my own experience in working in shelter over the years, that there's some cognitive dissonance that happens when a survivor comes into a shelter environment or into a domestic violence environment, and bam, there's a guy.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and I just want to make this point. So domestic violence and sexual violence is a human problem. So as we all know, it cuts across every facet of society. But a lot of what people think is they have this idea that it's male to female violence, but that simply isn't true. It's across the spectrum. But I do think, as a man initially working in the shelter, is where I was officed, there were some of those with our clients who had experienced male to female violence. There were some of those feelings, and so what I had to do was take extra precautions, just do some extra things. And what I did was I started working with the kids. And so what I learned was, if you begin working with children, and people see you working with the children and see you working effectively with children, and that you're not an aggressive person, they begin to say, okay, well, maybe he's not that bad. Kids are okay with him, maybe he's not that bad. And then you just have dialogue. I mean, I've had dialogues with women who have opened up to me about, with the neurofeedback, we're touching scalp to hook up sensors, and so I always ask, take it very slowly, ask ahead of time, is it okay? I'm going to have to do this and touch your head. And I've had several clients tell me, you're the first man in my life that hasn't touched me that wasn't a creep. Yes. And I think it's very important to model that there are healthy professional relationships. And I think once you establish that, then the trust.
Exactly. And that was the point I was really wanting to move us towards. Let's see. Jamie says, that's good, Thisha. I remember being a bit uncomfortable seeing the maintenance man when she first got to the shelter that she was at. And, I've seen it over the years that, if there was a male on staff, that you could just kind of see the clients kind of like freeze up, like, okay, is this okay? And, my son is actually been with an organization in Pasadena. In fact, he's actually on a camping trip. He's been on a camping trip and will be coming back today. And he is a mentor. And just the difference that it makes by having men be a part of this work. And I think sometimes maybe men may be a little apprehensive about doing this work, how they might be perceived. And then there are clients who may be apprehensive about receiving those services. And I love what you said, that it's about getting to know the person. In fact, along the way, I met a gentleman. He was a sexual assault nurse examiner, and he was one of the top SANEs in Houston during that time period. And, he often got the question when he would come out and do training, well, how do the female survivors respond to you? And just as you said, with some of the female survivors that you work with, that they open up and they recognize, what, there are men who are positive. And I believe there are so many positive men, so many. And it's just a matter of creating that idea that it's about being human and it's about being compassionate. And I hope I'm making sense. And if you want to add.
Total sense. I think that it is incumbent on all of us, no matter who we are, as advocates, to create those professional boundaries and that trust. And then it is for our client population who's experienced violence from men. It is so very important for us to that's the extra sort of responsibility that we have. So, for instance, the maintenance man, if it's a male janitor, if it's whoever it happens to be, they have an added role of, as we all do, of creating to show people that there can be positive relationships. There can be relationships that you don't have to fear that something bad is going to happen, or you're going to be manipulated, or whatever that happens to be. So yeah, I take that very seriously, and I think it is a very powerful thing. So for many of our kids who are in the shelter, who, for example, we were having an issue a few years ago with kids in the shelter, and they were bullying each other, and they were fighting, they were doing all these sorts of things, and they really weren't getting along. And so I just said, well, let me take them out and play basketball. Because one of the kids kept saying, hey, can we go play basketball? And I said, all right, let's go play basketball. So we did for several weeks in a row. And the one kind of main instigator kid refused. He was older. He refused. He says, that's stupid. I'm not going to come play. So, but then 2 weeks in, he was sitting out there watching us. I said, you want to play? He was like, no, I don't want to play. All right, that's fine. So we kept playing. Then he saw his brother playing. And then he was like, get out of the way. Let me show you how it's done. So he gets out there playing. We never spoke about any bullying. We never spoke about any of that. All we did was go out and play basketball, and the issues resolved because they started to play together and work together. And it wasn't us versus them. We're all in this together.
And I think that's a key, what you just said, to take away that whole us versus them mindset, that we're in this together. And I believe that that's one of the ways that we can move closer to ending gender-based violence, is recognizing it's not us against them, that it is about us learning how to work together. And just as corny as it sounds, just showing basic humanity. As you said, you didn't even have to mention bullying, but because they came together and realized that they had things in common, that the whole issue resolved itself. And so I think that modeling is so important, even when it comes to having healthy relationships. Let's see. Tish is saying, meeting them where they are, becoming relatable. Exactly. And Onika Mars has just now joined us. She's in Trinidad and Tobago. So welcome, Onika. So as a father, you mentioned you have children. So as a father, as we start rounding out, how, and do you have sons or daughters? I didn't catch that part.
Two boys.
Two boys. Okay. So as you are raising your sons, what is your hope for them as far as being engaged in ending gender-based violence? whether they choose to follow you in working in the movement or they lead other lives. But what is your hope for them?
My hope for them is, I mean, in that aspect, is that they've learned that people deserve dignity, that you can't, exerting control over another human being is never a positive thing, whether it's physical control or it's emotional control. I talk to them all the time. They're very aware that abuse happens. They're very aware that violence happens in relationships. I have one of them is a teenager. The other one is almost a teenager. So we've talked about, when my younger son was 9 or 10, he had a girlfriend that, I don't know how you define girlfriend, boyfriend, or anything at 9 or 10. But I asked them when they were in the car, I said, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be going out? And they kind of told me about it, and they're like, and then you kiss, and so then I take that little opportunity, and you say, well, that if you're ever in a relationship and the other person is pressuring you to kiss them, and you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to do it. No matter what they say, no matter how they're trying, you don't have to do it. You do it if you choose to do it, and you don't have to rush any of this. And so I think that's what I hope for them. They've picked up on those things, and that they not even that they speak it, that it's just ingrained, that's just how they operate.
I love that. I love that, Josh. And, I think sometimes people think that this is just so complicated, and you've just shown how it's really simple. It's simple. Just having a casual conversation about, how are things going, and for your son to feel that openness to say, hey, I got this girlfriend, and just to ease into that conversation. It is much easier than people think it is, whether you are a mother, a father, an aunt, uncle, whatever the case may be. And they are, I once heard the phrase said that more is caught than is taught.
That's good.
They're catching what you're throwing.
Yes. Good. Yes. I hope so. That's all you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are at almost 3 minutes. The time does go by so quickly. So if there was a man who approached you and said, you've been doing this work for about 6 years, or somebody told me that you work at that Fort Bend women's shelter. So, I got a daughter, I got a sister, and I don't know, I've always wanted to do something. I just wasn't sure how to start doing something. How can I get started? What would be your advice to that person?
My advice would be just get started. I think a lot of times people, they get stopped by I don't know how to get started. I don't know what the perfect way is to get started. Just get started. Reach out, find out, call a hotline, call a administrative number. If they're talking to me, I would refer them, if you want to volunteer, you want to work in it, whatever, but just start that. And it could look different ways. It could be that you're volunteering, that you're giving funds, that you're working at an agency. Could be that it's just you're going and getting training so that you can educate your own family and your own sphere of people. Could be that you are in a group of men and it starts going into an area that is very uncomfortable and shouldn't be going into that area of conversation. And you're the one that says, hey, maybe we steer it this other way. And so there's lots of ways, but you just have to just start. Don't be held back by not knowing what the perfect way is.
Awesome. So if our viewers want to get in contact with you, maybe for training about neurofeedback, or they want to see about if they would qualify for neurofeedback or any of the services at Fort Bend County Women's Center, how would they do that, Josh?
So me directly, email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And that's jbrown@fbwc.org. So you can shoot an email my way. My direct office line is 281-344-5733, or you can call our hotline at 281-342-4357.
Okay. And our amazing Rebecca Council, she is putting that information in there. So she's got your contact, jbrown@fbwc.org, your line 281-344-5733.
That's right.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, Rebecca, as always. And any final parting words that you would like to leave with our audience today?
I appreciate being here. Thank you so much for listening. It's an honor to be able to share this work. And again, we're all in this together. We've got to come together. We've got to hear different viewpoints, and because that's what's going to take to overcome this.
Exactly. And I don't know, does anyone have any questions before Josh goes back to our green room? If you have a question, go ahead and feel free to type that in. And if not, I don't see anything coming up, then we will be rounding this out. So Josh, I will see you in about 1 minute. Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us again for another conversation with our community partners. Again, this month we are focusing on having conversations with men who are doing the work. And, we thank Josh, Emiliano, Jeremy, and next week we will have Dr. Richard Baker. Dr. Richard Baker, who is with Rice University. He is the Title IX coordinator, director of Title IX. And so we'll find out more information about Title IX and how we can engage men on college campus to be involved in this work. And so let's see, Jamie is saying, as always, phenomenal interview. Thank you, Josh, Leisha, and Rebecca. Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, Tish, and also Anika, who were here during the live. And again, to those who will watch the replay. We will see you next Monday. And again, we will be speaking with Dr. Richard Baker from Rice University. Everyone have an amazing rest of the week.